Massachusetts real estate just hit the brakes in January. But across dozens of towns, prices are still climbing the hill. Start with the ground truth. In January, across Massachusetts, new listings for single-corn family homes fell 7.4% year-over-year, and condo listings slipped 10.2%. Closed sales followed suit, down 11.1% for single-quine family homes and 8.1% for condos. Even in a quiet month, the price story split. The median single-coin family home sold for $645,000 in January, up 5.7% from a year earlier. Median condo prices edged the other way to $550,000, down 1.8%. Inventory remains the choke point. When fewer homes hit the market and buyers compete over what's there, the quiet can sound like a whisper and feel like a bidding war. Zoom out one notch. Across the country, the typical home value sat at $358,968 in January, up just 0.2% year over year. That's a flat line on the national chart. But Massachusetts is not the national average, and the state's heat map doesn't glow evenly. Over the 12 months ending January 2026, the fastest, sorrier-growing home values were not in one zip code or one county. They spanned the South Shore, the Western Hills, the North Shore, Cape Cod, and the islands. The numbers tell a precise story. Begin on the western edge. Mount Washington posted the fastest percentage gain in that part of the state. The typical home value reached $618,261, a 6.7% jump in a year, adding $38,610. Egremont hit $759,955, up $31,962, a 4.4% rise. Longmeadow in the Springfield metro climbed to $513,764, a 5.2% increase, adding $25,351. The 5-year arcs in these towns are longer and steeper. Egremont's typical value is up 54.9% over 5 years, a $269,198 gain. Longmeadow is up 41.1% over that span, adding $149,620. This is the quiet western drumbeat. Small towns, solid climbs. Shift to the shoreline where the numbers roar. On Nantucket, the typical home value is $2,970,409 after a $106,806,853, a 3.7% gain. Cross the Sound to Martha's Vineyard. In Chilmark, typical value stands at $2,283,291, up $117,172 in a year, a 5.4% gain. West Tisbury is at $1,597,348, up $32,059 in a year, a 2.0% rise, and a towering 58.5% over 5 years, a $589,516 increase. Edgartown sits at $1,773,099, up $26,624, a 1.5% annual gain. Tisbury reached $1,276,443, adding $39,358, a 3.2% increase. Each of these island markets has seen multi-kind-year surges. Chilmark's 5-kind-year increase is $699,205, up 44.1%. The islands gained a lot and kept a lot. Cape Cod mirrors that momentum. Provincetown's typical value sits at $1,048,897, up $34,553 in a year, a 3.4% rise, and up $355,181 over 5 years, a 51.2% surge. Chatham reached $1,246,496, a one-kind $6, a one-kind $3,303, up 3.3%, and a 5-coin-year leap of $479,752, up 62.6%. Harwich Port is at $1,027,992, up $28,309 in a year, 2.8%, and up $361,257 in 5 years, a 54.2% increase. These are not starter markets, yet their trajectories show how constrained coastal supply and persistent demand can harden into price. North of Boston, the North Shore stacked steady increases across town lines. Manchester hit $1,269,765, up $70,429 in a year, a 5.9% lift, and up $418,518 across 5 years, a 49.2% rise. Wenham rose to $1,026,689, gaining $50,922 in a year, 5.2%, and $349,625 in 5 years, 51.6%. Topsfield sits at $933,067, up $25,382 in a year, 2.8%, and $254,175 in 5 years, 37.4%. Boxford reached $1,033,440, up $31,883 in a year, 3.2%, and up $296,393 in 5 years, 40.2%. Newbury sits at $902,692, up $30,332, a 3.5% rise, and up $288,880 over 5 years, 47.1%. Newburyport posted $894,965, rising $37,751 in a year, 4.4%, and $280,315 across 5 years, 45.6%. Linfield is at $1,052,527, up $25,469 in a year, 2.5%, and up $304,080 in 5 years, 40.6%. Hamilton reached $846,661, adding $24,410 in a year, 3.0%, and $217,673 in 5 years, 34.6%. Georgetown sits at $750,158, up $26,252, 3.6%, and up $204,627 in 5 years, 37.5%. Reading climbed to $878,273, up $24,341 in a year, 2.9%, and up $239,205 over 5, 37.4%. That is a corridor where a typical town gained between roughly $24,000 and $70,000 in a single year, and between roughly $204,000 and $418,000 over 5 years. Head west of Boston into the high kind-demand suburbs. Weston stands at $2,182,055, logging the state's largest dollar gain in that 12-quoting month window, up $117,607 in a year, 5.7%, and up $784,604 over 5 years, a 56.1% surge. Wellesley reached $1,946,383, up $86,543 in a year, 4.7%, and up $618,110 in 5 years, 46.5%. Dover climbed to $1,715,001, adding $76,048 in a year, 4.6%, and $515,218 across 5 years, 42.9%. Lexington hit $1,524,672, up $55,510 in a year, 3.8%, and up $449,399 over 5, 41.8%. Newton is at $1,483,224, adding $56,411 in a year, 4.0%, and $400,151 in 5 years, 36.9%. Needham sits at $1,471,816, up $56,955 in a year, 4.0%, and up $457,637 over 5, 45.1%. Lincoln reached $1,455,598, adding $62,655 in a year, 4.5%, and $449,219 over 5, 44.6%. Belmont rose to $1,402,452, up $23,610 in a year, 1.7%, and $327,993 over 5 years, 30.5%. Concord is at $1,388,955, up $41,691 in a year, 3.1%, and up $455,869 in 5 years, 48.9%. Winchester climbed to $1,496,625, up $34,354 in a year, 2.3%, and up $400,821 in 5 years, 36.6%. Medfield reached $1,025,995, gaining $22,872 in a year, 2.3%, and posting a $303,837, 42.1% rise across 5 years. Sherborne hit $1,183,436, up $40,856 in a year, 3.6%, and $350,315 over 5 years, 42.0%. Westwood is at $1,185,365, up $41,096 in a year, 3.6%, and up $361,153 in 5 years, 43.8%. The center ring of Greater Boston didn't cool, it concentrated. To the south, the story knits along the coast. Scituate reached $973,110, up $43,270 in a year, 4.7%, and up $311,285 in 5 years, 47.0%. Duxbury sits at $1,062,844, up $43,988 in a year, 4.3%, and up $369,723 in 5 years, 53.3%. Hingham is at $1,253,472, up $50,059 in a year, 4.2%, and up $402,718 over 5 years, 47.3%. Cohasset hit $1,380,711, up $63,762 in a year, 4.8%, and up $459,897 across 5 years, 49.9%. Norwell crossed into 7 figures at $1,007,885, adding $58,596 in a year, 6.2%, and $331,863 over 5, 49.1%. Marshfield reached $764,400, up $28,272 in a year, 3.8%, and up $242,293 across 5 years, 46.4%. Hanover climbed to $788,176, a $26,914, 3.5% annual gain, and $215,213 over 5 years, 37.6%. Pembroke logged $641,063, up $22,632, 3.7%, and up $175,458, 37.7% over 5 years. Hanson reached $588,564, up $22,044 in a year, 3.9%, and up $165,091 over 5, 39.0%. West Bridgewater sits at $576,981, up $22,207 in a year, 4.0%, and up $153,683 across 5 years, 36.3%. These are the places where families have been bidding for backyards and train access. The numbers show how relentless that demand has been. Inside Route 128, the inner-suburban belt and near-urban markets kept their pace. Arlington's typical value is $1,034,197, up $28,731 in a year, 2.9%, and up $241,797 over 5 years, 30.5%. Bedford sits at $995,155, up $29,893 in a year, 3.1%, and up $255,959 in 5 years, 34.6%. Watertown reached $811,725, up $22,749 in a year, 2.9%, and up $161,645 over 5 years, 24.9%. Reading is at $878,273, up $24,341, 2.9%, and up $239,205 in 5 years, 37.4%. Hamilton reached $846,661, up $24,410, 3.0%, and $217,673 over 5 years, 34.6%. Topsfield, Linfield, Andover, and Newburyport all booked one-year dollar gains between roughly $25,000 and $37,000. Andover's typical value, for instance, stands at $955,108, up $29,982 in a year, 3.2%, and up $287,834 over 5 years, 43.1%. These are not isolated pins on a map, they are a cluster. Two forces help explain the split screen, the January lull and the 12 Quine-month climb. First, January often slows. This year, that slowdown showed up in double ball-digit declines in closed sales for single-guine family homes and high single-guine-digit declines for condos. Second, the demand-supply math remained lopsided. Buyers are still competing for a limited number of homes, especially in places with established schools, commuter access, or coastline. Signals suggest that this combination, fewer fresh listings and persistent buyer pools, has been pushing up prices in many towns even as broader growth cooled. Higher mortgage rates didn't reverse the tide, they slowed it. That friction shows up in the segment split. The median single-guine family price statewide rose to $645,000 in January, a 5.7% jump. Condos dipped to $550,000, a 1.8% decline. On paper, condos offer a lower price point. In practice, the January data shows that attached homes may have given back a little ground while single-con family properties held their premium. If you are a buyer choosing between a driveway and a shared lobby, January leaned toward the driveway. Policy and law add a new layer of uncertainty. Tenant advocates are pressing for a legislative compromise to enact a version of rent control while avoiding a bruising ballot fight. The Attorney General filed a suit against 9 municipalities: Dracute, East Bridgewater, Halifax, Holden, Marblehead, Middleton, Tewksbury, Wilmington, and Winthrop, signaling state-local friction that could shape housing decisions. And the state's Supreme Judicial Court chose to adjudicate separate legal fights involving 2 sites, one tied to Boston's Franklin Park and another on the North Shore, with repercussions that could extend well beyond those neighborhoods. None of these cases set a price. All of them can change the pace and pattern of where homes get built, converted, or held back. Behind the headlines, professionals are trying to keep the market human. A statewide network of young professionals within the real estate community has been building bridges across experience levels, hosting educational webinars, community service, and networking events designed to keep practitioners informed and connected. In 2025, that group ran a clothing drive supporting a nonprofit focused on job seekers, collecting business attire and personal care items to help people step into interviews with confidence. The chair leading the network this year is based in Greater Boston, and the group is already planning out its 2026 calendar. None of this moves a median overnight, but it matters in the transactions where trust can be the difference between a canceled deal and a closing. Back on the ground, the town-owned by point-down numbers are the clearest lens on what buyers really face. In Weston, a 12-coin-month gain of $117,607 lifted the typical home to $2,182,055. In neighboring Wellesley, a one-year gain of $86,543 pushed the typical value to $1,946,383. Concord's typical value climbed by $41,691 to $1,388,955, while Lexington added $55,510 to reach $1,524,672. Needham increased by $56,955 to $1,471,816. Lincoln rose by $62,655 to $1,455,598. Dover by $76,048 to $1,715,001. This arc of affluent suburbs shows large dollar gains even when percentage changes look modest. The base is high. The dollars add up. North Shore towns show how mid-Tiat places can move in tandem. Manchester's $70,429 rise delivered a typical value of $1,269,765. Wenham added $50,922 to $1,026,689. Newbury ports $37,751, 1.2 increase lifted it to $894,965, while Newbury's $30,332 gain took it to $902,692. Linfield's $25,469 brought it to $1,052,527, Georgetown's $26,252 to $750,158, Boxford's $31,883 to $1,033,440, and Andover's $29,982 to $955,108. When towns in a corridor each add between roughly $25,000 and $70,000 in a year, you know the corridor is tight. On the South Shore, price ladders are equally steep. Cohasset's $63,762, one-on-year rise lifted its typical home to $1,380,711. Hingham's $50,059 took it to $1,253,472. Norwell's $58,596 brought it to $1,007,885. Duxbury's $43,988 took it to $1,062,844. Situate's $43,270 pushed it to $973,110. Marshfield's $28,272 set it at $764,400. Hanover's $26,914 put it at $788,176. Smaller inland towns like Pembroke and Hanson up $22,632 to $641,163 and $22,044 to $588,564, respectively, show that the lift is not just for enclaves with harbors. It's a band. Across the inner belt, movement is steady if a bit thinner. Arlington's $28,731 increase to $1,034,197. Bedford's $29,893 rise to $995,155. Watertown's $22,749 to $811,725. Belmont's $23,610 to $1,402,452. Reading's $24,341 to $878,273. Even modest dollar gains mean real decisions for buyers whose budgets are locked by debt tied to Acorn income ratios. An extra $25,000 on a typical home value can send someone from one town to the next, from a 3-coin bedroom to a 2-wine bedroom, or from single-coin family to condo, unless that condo price is softening. Look again at the 5-year moves, because they set the stage for what affordable now means. Marshfield up $242,293 over 5 years. Scituate up $311,285. Duxbury up $369,723. Hingham up $402,718. Cohasset up $459,897. Norwell up $331,863. On the North Shore, Newberry is up $288,880 over 5 years. Newburyport up $280,315, $315. Linfield up $304,080. Andover up $287,834. West of Boston, Weston's 5-year gain is $784,604. Wellesley's is $618,110. Lincoln's is $449,219. Lexington's $449,399. Newton's $450,151. Needham's $457,000. Needham's $457,637. Concord's $455,869. Dover's $515,218. These are wealth concentrations made visible as dollar figures. Meanwhile, the Island Arc is in its own league. Nantucket's typical home value rose by $982,305 over 5 years, a 49.4% leap. Chilmark's 5-9-year rise of $699,205 is 44.1%. West Tisbury's $589,516 is 58.5%. Edgartown's $592,511 is 50.2%. Provincetown's $355,181 is 51.2%. Chatham's $479,752 is 62.6%. Harwichport's $361,257 is 54.2%. If you're anchored to a middle-like time class wage, these numbers don't just challenge you, they move the horizon. Not everything is a straight line up. January's statewide condo median at $550,000 was 1.8% lower than a year earlier, even as single-coin families climbed. Signals suggest part of the split could be preference. Many buyers still want yards, space, and distance, and they chase those features in the single-condo family market. Another part may be supply dynamics within condo buildings and recent deliveries in specific submarkets. The exact drivers will vary block by block. The measured fact is the gap, $645,000 for a median single-court family, $550,000 for a median condo. Two markets moving at different speeds. Policy pressure is mounting alongside price pressure. Tenant advocates are working to shape a compromise version of rent control at the state level to avoid a high-in-stakes ballot fight. Legal friction is rising as well. The Attorney General's suit against Dracute, East Bridgewater, Halifax, Holden, Marblehead, Middleton, to Tewksbury, Wilmington, and Winthrop adds 9 names to a legal docket that can shape local choices. And the state's highest court stepping in to adjudicate separate disputes, one tied to Boston's Franklin Park area and another on the North Shore, signals that questions about land, use, and process are not theoretical. They're active. Markets respond not just to statutes and suits, but to the lived needs those frameworks are supposed to serve. In Newton, a newly opened apartment community this year is targeting middle-aged income seniors who don't qualify for lower RN income housing and can't afford high RN assisted living. It's a small but telling move, a signal that developers are trying to fit solutions into the gap between subsidized and luxury. In a city where the typical single-courting family home value has risen by $56,411 over 12 months to $1,483,224, creating middle on-path options isn't charity, it's strategy. Think about the buyer who started in Arlington and shifted to Watertown. Arlington's typical value is $1,034,197 after a $28,731 annual increase. Watertown is $811,725 after a $22,749 rise. That gap, $222,472, can be decisive. Or the household weighing Situate at $973,110 versus Marshfield at $764,400, a spread of $208,710 after one-car year gains of $43,270 and $28,272, respectively. On the North Shore, Newburyport at $894,965 and Newbury at $902,692 are nearly interchangeable on price, both up about $30,000 to $8,000 in a year, while Manchester's $1,269,765 pushes it out of reach for some. These are not abstract numbers. They're search filters. On the seller side, decisions are equally tight. Fewer new listings in January, down 7.4% for single-kind family, down 10.2% for condos, means every would-I-tay seller is calculating whether spring will bring more active buyers. The statewide voice of brokerage leadership called that out. January is often sleepy, especially right after the holidays, and the expectation is for a more active spring market. If that happens, the next meaningful data point will be whether new listings finally turn up and whether closed sales recover from January's 11.1% and 8.1% declines in the single-chin family and condo segments, respectively. Affordability is a function of price, mortgage rate, and income. We do not need to calculate an index to see the crunch. The national typical home value of $358,968 in January gives context. When Marshfield's typical home is $764,400, that's more than double the national typical. When Needham's is $1,471,816, it's more than quadruple. When Nantucket is $2,970,409, that's a different universe. And yet, within Massachusetts, some towns still sit closer to the state's January condo median. West Bridgewater at $576,981 and Hanson at $564, both up a little over $22,000 in a year, are not low, but they're comparatively accessible in a region where Lexington added $55,510 in a year just to reach $1,524,672. The 5-year numbers also hint at risk. A place like Chatham adding $479,752 over 5 years to reach $1,246,000. $496 is a story of persistent demand meeting limited supply, but it's also a high base for any correction. Similarly, Weston's $784,604 5-year gain to $2,182,055 sets a bar that few buyers can clear without perfect timing. Signals suggest this is where rate sensitivity and policy shifts could matter most, less in cutting today's price than in slowing tomorrow's climb. What about condos specifically? The January statewide dip to $550,000, down 1.8% year over year, sits next to single Chime family strength. Watch the condo belt in the inner suburbs. Watertown at $811,725, Arlington at $1,034,197, Belmont at $1,402,452. If buyer preferences tilt back toward attached living to regain affordability, the condo segment could stabilize. If instead the pull toward yards and detached homes persists, you could see a longer, grin-lived split, with condos lagging even when spring heats up. The legal landscape could tilt the supply curve, too. If the rent control compromise advances, it may affect investor appetite for certain buildings and neighborhoods, especially in markets close to Boston where rent regulations would matter most. The Attorney General's suit against the 9 listed towns introduces uncertainty about local discretion. And with the Supreme Judicial Court agreeing to weigh in on separate site fights, one involving Boston's Franklin Park area and another on the North Shore, the rules of engagement on where and how to build could shift during the same months that buyers and sellers are trying to read the spring tea leaves. Meanwhile, professionals on the ground are investing in their own resilience. Statewide, a network focused on young professionals in real estate has been convening workshops, leading community drives, and cross and pollinating ideas between newer agents and seasoned veterans. In 2025, that included a tailored clothing and personal iron care drive for job seekers, a small act that echoes a larger point. In a market where a single percentage point or a $30,000 swing can decide a family's next decade, the human side of the transaction is not a luxury. It's infrastructure. So what happens next? Base case, January's slump yields to a more active spring, with new listings picking up from the seasonally slow start. If inventory improves even modestly from January's pullback, down 7.4% for single condo family and 10.2% for condos, closed sales could recover from their 11.1% and 8.1% declines as buyers and sellers find price clarity. The single-coin family median, already at $645,000 in January, likely remains firm in the near term because buyers are still competing for a limited set of homes. The condo median at $550,000 may stabilize if affordability, seeking buyers return to attached homes when single-coin family options stretch budgets. Across towns, expect continued divergence. Island and coastal enclaves with pronounced 5-times-year gains. Chatham up $479,752, Nantucket up $982,305, Chilmark up $609,205. Enter spring with gravity on their side. High in-demand western and inner porting belt towns, Lexington up $55,510 in a year to $1,524,672. Newton up $56,411 to $1,483,224. Lincoln up $62,655 to $1,455,598. Remain tight. South Shore markets, Cohasset up $63,762 to $1,380,711. Hingham up $50,059 to $1,253,472. Norwell up $58,596 to $1,007,885. Keep drawing buyers who can stretch. In the mid-tier, keep an eye on towns like Marshfield at $764,400 and Hanover at $788,176. They have headroom for demand to step in if rates or budgets leave pricier neighbors out of reach. 2 watch items for the coming months stand out. First, the policy track, whether lawmakers coalesce around a rent control compromise, and how the Attorney General's suit against Dracute, East Bridgewater, Halifax, Holden, Marblehead, Middleton, Tewksbury, Wilmington, and Winthrop proceeds, alongside the Supreme Judicial Court's decisions on disputes tied to Boston's Franklin Park area and the North Shore. Any of these steps could nudge development timelines, rental pricing, or investor sentiment. Second, the segment split, whether the condo median at $550,000 continues to lag while the single condo family median holds at $645,000 and above, or whether spring demand narrows that gap. The sign to watch is simple. Do new condo listings recover from January's 10.2% drop at a pace that brings buyers back? Underneath it all, Massachusetts is still a map of scarcity. Towns on the South Shore posted one-year gains from $26,914 in Hanover to $63,762 in Cohasset. North Shore towns rose from $24,410 in Hamilton to $70,429 in Manchester. Western towns climbed between $25,351 in Longmeadow and $38,610 in Mount Washington. Island markets added from $26,624 in Edgartown to $117,172 in Chilmark, with Nantucket's $106,853 rising tide lifting an already high dock. Over 5 years, Weston's $784,604 and Chatham's $479,752 gains are bookends of the same truth. Less supply, steady demand, higher prices. The path forward is not just about price lines on a chart. It's about choices. Do buyers chase the $28,731 increase to Arlington's $1,034,197, or do they look to Bedford's $995,155 after a $29,893 rise? Do families cross from Situate at $973,110 to Marshfield at $764,400, banking the $208,710 difference? Does a senior in Newton opt for the newly opened middle-aligned income community rather than hold onto a single good family home in a city where typical values moved by $56,411 in a year to $1,483,224? Do sellers who sat out January, when new listings fell 7.4% for single-gone family and 10.2% for condos, step in during spring? The camera lingers on a final frame, a state with a national context of $358,968 for a typical home value in January, yet neighborhoods where typical values start at $513,764 in Longmeadow run through $764,400 in Marshfield and $1,253,472 in Hingham, and climb to $2,182,055 in Weston and $2,970,409 on Nantucket. The slope isn't even. It's steepest where the water meets the land and where school rankings meet train lines. But the data sings the same note in many keys. January was sleepy, and prices in many towns still went up. The outlook is crisp. Base case, a more active spring market as seasonal patterns reassert, with single-con family prices staying firm around the January median of $645,000, and condos testing a bounce from $550,000. Two things to watch: the unfolding policy and legal track around rent regulation and municipal suits that could rewire local housing decisions, and the condo-kind versus single-con family split that will define affordability through the summer. If you care about where Massachusetts is heading, watch the listings, the lawsuits, and the line where $550,000 meets $645,000. If this helped you see the map beneath the market, share it with someone who needs a clear compass right now.